Now join John Huffman and Gail Hogan.
Good evening. 10 years ago in a South American jungle, an unimaginable horror was unfolding. The Reverend Jim Jones had just committed suicide, along with 900 of his followers. The Reverend Jim Jones had just committed suicide, along with 900 of his followers.
You know, John, 10 years ago, I was at my first radio job, and as the story started to unfold and come across the Associated Press wire services, it was unbelievable. At first, I thought only 70 people died, and then as the hours went on, it mounted to 900 people.
And remember the horrifying pictures.
Pictures we'll never forget. Tonight, I'll look back at the Jonestown tragedy through the eyes of people who will never forget, the survivors.
Let the night roar, because they can hear us. They know we mean it. We'll kill them as they come.
To some, he was a messiah, inspiring hundreds to follow him to the promised land. To others, he was a maniac, hell-bent on destruction. Jim Jones always said he wanted to leave his mark in the history books, and a decade ago, he did. When the bloodletting of November 18, 1978 was over, a U.S. congressman was murdered, and 911 of Jones's followers lay dead. 3 people who were there in Guyana remember the day Jim Jones's heaven turned to pure hell.
Lay down your life with dignity. Don't lay down with tears and agony. Stop this hysterics.
When he killed people, when the people were killed with the cyanide poisoning, he took the children first, and you know what he said? He says, if you escape or if you live through this, you'll do it without your children. And that's how a lot of people went and took the cyanide, because, you know, their children were dead.
I personally don't believe 10 years ago, former Temple member Grace Stone was in Guyana, trying desperately to get her 6-year-old son out. Assemblywoman Jackie Spear was accompanying her boss, Congressman Leo Ryan, on a fact-finding trip into the jungles of Guyana. And San Francisco Examiner city editor Tim Reiterman was a reporter investigating the shady practices of the People's Temple and its leader. The fates of all 3 came together a decade ago because of one man, the Reverend Jim Jones.
He was a maniac. He was power hungry. I think in his own way wanted to rule the world.
He was the kind of person that he could be in a room with you, maybe 10, half hour, an hour, and figure out what button made you move.
He made hell out of what was supposed to be a utopian community.
From the time he was a little boy, Jim Jones knew he wanted to be a preacher. In the mid-60s, he moved his church to Northern California and called it the People's Temple. 1,200 members were attracted by the liberal causes and good works of the church. Politicians courted Jones for his support. Members like Grace Stone turned over their homes, their wages, even the custody of their children to the charismatic man who was going to save the world.
You know, I used to think many times, I'd look around at the people and I'd say, am I the only one that feels this way? I mean, I think this is bizarre. I think this is crazy. I don't like this. I don't like living this way. I don't like being a young person and having to sacrifice so much. But I was never allowed to verify my feelings. That's very powerful.
Over the years, Jim Jones became more and more unbalanced. He punished members with brutal beatings and forced himself sexually on female and male church members. As the media began to uncover these abuses, Jones moved most of his followers to Guyana, including Grace's young son, John Victor. Long before the exodus to Jonestown, Grace knew she had to get out.
And then I saw one woman that was severely beaten, and I don't know, the next day I saw her walking around like a zombie. And I felt that her will was broken. And I knew never to put myself in that situation because I never wanted to be broken. I never wanted to be someone walking around mindlessly, especially at the hands of Jim Jones.
In November of '78, Congressman Leo Ryan led a mission to Jonestown to check on charges that people were being held against their will. With him went a delegation including Jackie Spear and Tim Reiterman.
It was frightening to see just how weak Jim Jones appeared to be. His gaze was kind of gelatinous, behind his sunglasses. He spoke with and rambled and ranted and raved and let his paranoia show.
When it was time for Ryan's party to leave, dozens of Tempo members wanted to go with him. For Jones, it was a final blow. Apparently, it was Jones who ordered the airport ambush that left Leo Ryan and 4 others dead, Tim and Jackie wounded.
I just heard the guns ring out, and I didn't even know what the sound was. I saw Congressman Ryan run under the aircraft, and people scurrying around. I just followed suit. And as I started to cross next to him, I saw blood gushing out of his neck, and the guns kept going off. And I was just feigning that I was dead at that point, although I was also just waiting to die.
How many times were you shot?
5 times. I'm still carrying 2 bullets, actually.
But the horror of that night was only beginning. Back at the compound, Jones began the final suicide rite. He screamed, "Die with dignity," as his followers swallowed a cyanide-laced drink. Resistors were shot. 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 Resistors were shot.
The Reverend Jim Jones had just committed suicide, along with 900 of his followers.
Resistors were shot. Not even the children were spared.
One of the church members said, "Well, are you going to kill the children? Are you going to kill John Stone?" And he said yes. And he said John was brought to the stage, and Jim Jones said, "Do you want to die?" And he said no, and he started crying. And he was taken off the stage. And then other people told me that he was given a sleeping pill. That was always in the plan, that he would be given a sleeping pill, and then he was injected.
10 years later, the memory of Jonestown still haunts us, and so does Jim Jones, who died with a bullet through his head. Even now, it seems inconceivable that 900 people would follow this madman to their deaths. But Jones's followers weren't crazy. They were deceived and died for their willingness to believe. Could there be another Jonestown today?
There could be another Jonestown in this country. It doesn't have to be in some far-flung foreign locale. It could happen again. And that's the real message, that we all have to be vigilant.
I know what I know. I know what I heard, and I know what I saw with my eyes, with my own eyes. And I know what was done to each and every one of us. I wish that people could have almost walked in our shoes and then judge us. Walk in our shoes and then tell me what, how you see it.
Grace married another Temple defector. They now have 2 children. Jackie Spear went on to be elected to the California State Assembly. Tim Reiterman went back to Guyana. His report will soon appear in a San Francisco newspaper.
Now, you would think that Congressman Ryan's daughter would have learned a lesson from all this, but instead, Congressman Ryan's daughter, Shannon, joined a cult on her own. She joined the cult of the Bhagwan Rajneesh in Oregon. That cult's gotten a lot of publicity lately, as it flourished for a while and then fell apart because of legal problems.
It's been nearly 4 years since the utopian community of Rancho Rajneesh was disbanded.